I'm very, very excited and nervous to bring to you the first episode of my new show called the Esports Hour. My name is Funk Styles and I'm your new host. Today I'm very excited to be interviewing one of the most influential people from Australia in the space of esports. His name is David Godz Parker. If you're a Dota 2 fan, you will definitely know who he is. He is the founder of Beyond the Summit and one of our favourite international casters and analysts. So please, sit back, get your cup of coffee, and enjoy the show. Do hit that like and subscribe button. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming and tuning in today. It's the first episode of the Esports Hour. Today I'm lucky enough to be sitting down with my first guest. I'm incredibly nervous and excited to speak to him today. He's the founder of Beyond the Summit, professional Dota 2 caster and analyst, and has just recently appeared in the TI casting team for qualifiers and more. So happy to sit down with him today. He's a fellow Australian. Dave, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's nice to, be back on some home-ish soil. I got to use the word home carefully since I'm not in Australia, but just to, get back to my own bed. It's always a nice feeling after an event, even though, TI ending has a kind of bittersweet feel to it as well.
Absolutely. It would be quite bittersweet once it's all finished. I'd imagine you get quite emotionally attached to some of these teams that you're casting and whatnot. What was your favorite team throughout the entire tournament?
I think for me, a lot of my probably closer attachments to teams are the ones I kind of get to know more throughout the year. So, naturally with the being involved in the NADPC, organizing it, casting it, I really wanted to see, Undying and Quincy Crew do well, which unfortunately didn't happen. And I'd say the other side of that is, I've always been a big follower of the SEA Dota scene. So I was, really hoping that T1 and Fnatic, T1 especially, I really wanted to see those guys go far. They had a good tournament, but not quite. They didn't quite, catch headlines the same way some other teams did.
Isn't that right? I mean, being from Australia and amongst the Southeast Asia scene myself, seeing T1's performance, I mean, for myself, they did a lot better than I expected, even. So, I mean, just a really, really strong showing, I think, for the C scene, and I'm excited to see what they have coming this year. What did you?
I agree.
What did you think about Team Spirit's run and being so involved in the scene? Was it something that you low-key expected? Because they have had some very impressive performances leading up to TI, isn't that right?
Yeah, I don't think many people expected, I would say no one really expected the, Spirit to win TI or even get top 2, top 3 as far as, people who are at the event casting and stuff goes. I think there was an expectation like, oh, these guys are, the real deal, because the tournaments leading up to TI, they were doing really well, but it's a very different ask to, do well in a, they got to top 2 of some online tournaments where they lost to LGD leading up to TI, but to do the same at TI where there's more pressure and more at stake, that's kind of crazy. I think what we do expect, though, and we have kind of learned to expect, is just crazy, unexpected things to happen at TI. It feels like every year there's some kind of story that you just don't see coming. If you go back, whether it was DC's run at TI6, you had CDC, TI5, OG at TI8, the first time they won it. So, every TI seems to produce some kind of crazy underdog team that goes really far in the tournament. This time around, they just happen to actually win the whole thing.
That's right. And I see lots of headlines at the moment. This Team Spirit run's almost worthy of an anime movie or something. It's that anime storyline, and it's heartwarming. I mean, this entire international was heartwarming. It was sad and crushing. With Quincy Crew, when EG and Quincy Crew came up against each other, and we had the clash of the brothers and all these kinds of things. It's something that can't be written, the feelings that TI brings to the esports world, and it's why I love it so much. Your experience working with TI, I mean, this international had more, let's say, hurdles and obstacles to overcome than any previously. How was your experience working on the International 10 with all the changes and hurdles that did come up in comparison to working on the 5 previous internationals that you have worked on?
Yeah, it was very different. I think every event I've worked over the past year and a half since COVID began has felt different just because, it's different times now. There's a lot more stress going on at events. It's just more complicated to run events, period. And, we feel that even when we're just hired as talent, we're not the ones running the event. We're just there to show up, cast, do our thing, put on the best show possible. But, everything kind of trickles down. TI without a live crowd obviously was a weird feeling in many ways. Obviously for the best, but there was that feel where it's like, man, this was such a magical TI with what Team Spirit did and so many other amazing matches. It would have been so good to be able to share it with fans, but it is what it is, and I very confident that we're going to see fans back next year. I feel like after what happened this year, unfortunately, very last minute, the crowd had to be cancelled. I think there's very, very high chance that next year the fans will be back.
That'll be very, very exciting, and I will be there if that is the case. I cannot wait for it.
Awesome.
What's coming up with Beyond the Summit, leading into the Christmas holidays and 2022?
Yeah, we're kind of I would say a 24/7 Dota studio in some ways. Like even when we're not running events where it feels like we're always planning the next event coming up. I mean, our Twitch channel itself is literally 24/7. But there isn't really much downtime when it comes to BTS and Dota. We, leading up to TI, did multiple online Pro Series events. Before that, we were doing TI qualifiers. We had DPC leagues with NA. So, we're obviously looking to be a part of the DPC again. We'd love to be doing DPC leagues. We don't, nothing's confirmed. We're, still waiting to figure out where our place is going to be in the DPC next season. But I'd say same as usual. We're going to be running lots of Dota tournaments, hopefully DPC leagues. Outside of DPC, we want to run more events. We're hoping, maybe next year or at least sometime in the future to bring back Dota summits. It's very hard to run LAN Dota tournaments, even harder than ever because of the pandemic. Getting teams over from Europe to America has always been a challenge. Unfortunately, the American Dota scene is not the liveliest, so it is always tricky to run events in North America, but we'd love to. Dota Summits is kind of the event everyone knows us for, so we want to bring those back as soon as possible.
That'd be great. And in regards to the North American scene at the moment, just for a little bit of a curveball, has COVID or the pandemic, severely impacted that scene? Have you felt?
Yeah, in some ways. We saw, I know, like some of the NA teams at TI talked a bit about it, how they basically spent, the entire pandemic year and a half or whatever, they were playing together, but they never met as teammates. Like for a lot of them, TI was the first time, for Undying, I think it was the first time they met as teammates, even though they'd been playing together for over a year. So it's kind of crazy to think, because we're just so used to, you just expect that teammates who are doing well in their region, qualifying for events, or a top team, are regularly either boot camping together or going to LANs together. And for so many, that wasn't the case. They're literally just playing from home, only interacting online. So I think a lot of for teams and players, a lot of that kind of camaraderie was kind of not there throughout the year. They they had to find new ways to be there to support each other. So I think the NA scene was, I think every scene was obviously hit hard by it. But NA especially, it's like everyone is so spread out across the country that, unlike maybe, for example, let's say China, where most of the teams are based in the same city in Shanghai, you don't get the same chance to kind of interact as much. Right.
I would have to say, when it comes to team cohesion and things like that, it would definitely have to affect them. Whereas you have teams like to go back to them, Team Spirit and your LGDs, I had no idea that Undying had never all met. But you have Spirits and your LGDs that spend, it almost seems like every single second together right now. Almost going back to OG leading up to the TI 8 and 9. It's when they were just, they had such that team feeling in at least the media that we were getting to see. You are a very, very busy man. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I've got one more question for you. Your favorite person to cast with?
Oh, that's a tough one. You kind of touched on earlier. I've been to a lot of TIs, and I'm in this position where I feel like I've cast the last 4 or 5 TIs. I've cast with someone different. Most recently, I cast with BSJ. I've cast with Lacoste at TI. I've cast with Winter Black. I've cast with LD. Honestly, probably in some ways, for me, some of my most memorable casts and some of the most fun I have is going way back and probably casting with LD. He doesn't cast anymore, so it's also a cop-out answer where I don't have to offend anyone I still work with.
That's a really, really good answer. But touching base on LD and your cast, I mean, that's going back way, way back, I think, to 2012, 11, 13-ish, around about that time. And that's when because I came from Heroes of New Earth, that's when I first kind of got into Dota, and being an Australian, I would always be watching the BTS. I still do always have the stream up on the side, just watching the live Dota games like you had running 24/7 on the Beyond the Summit Twitch channel. I remember you guys very, very fondly, and that's one of the reasons I was so excited and I felt so blessed that you gave me the opportunity today to speak to you, Godz. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me this interview. And I want to say have a fantastic day, and we cannot wait to see what Beyond the Summit has to bring. And we're also looking forward to seeing you on another panel very, very soon. Thank you, Godz.
Thank you as well. It's my pleasure.